Greetings, community, and welcome to Entropy and Comics and another edition of this week's signed books. This week, I got to spend a little bit of time with Charles Soule, and I got a book signed by Jim Lee. Now, I did not get to go to WonderCon as in many others in this community have. However, I did, as I mentioned, get to spend a little bit of time with an individual I've never did get to meet before, and he only had an opportunity to spend a little time at the panel at WonderCon and did not attend any of the signing events to my knowledge. That stated, he did spend some time over at Revenge of Comics and Pinball, and there he did a hour and a half signing event to which that only a few people attended. Now, this wasn't a major, how should I say, advertised event, nor did many people really know about it until the last 2 weeks prior, in which that he was confirmed over at WonderCon. So it made the event really personal and really intimate, in which I got to discuss some past, present, and a little bit of the future projects in which that he's present, that he's working on and that he could speak about. Now, as I made mention also, I did get a single book signed by Mr. Jim Lee. He did spend a little bit of time over here in LA, and he did visit two local shops, one of which was Collector's Paradise in North Hollywood, and the other which was Golden Apple Comics in, I guess I would be considered West LA or Hollywood. It's kind of borderlining. That stated, he did an event early in the morning or early in the afternoon from, I think it was somewhere between, I don't know, I'm going to make numbers up. I think it was like 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. and then over at North Hollywood at Collectors, and then over at Golden Apple, something like 3 to 5 p.m. I got over to Golden Apple, day of event, a little after 9 a.m. It was around the corner, around another corner, and started to go into an alley. That is a distance of, I don't know, maybe around 200 feet. I knew it by the time I ended up finding parking, got over there. I might have been able to attend, but that states that I would have been having to stay there for like 3 hours to try to get in there, buy a comic, to try to get my ticket so I can then come back 3 hours or 4 hours later, and then which I'd have to stand in line into the respective position again and hope that I would be able to get a few books signed. I didn't have that luxury. So I know there's a long setup and a long story, but I want to go to give you a full debrief of what transpired on that day of, which day was it? 3/26/2025. So that was the Wednesday that he did end up doing a bunch of signing event. And he is Jim Lee. So I did end up receiving a single book by one of the individuals that does work at the Collector's Paradise, was kind enough to go ahead and give me a book signed. This is that book. Unfortunately, Jim Lee has been eluding me for the past 32 years. We keep crossing paths. Every time I've seen him was also in situations in which that I didn't have books on me. I've been to a couple of events with Danny Mickey when I was younger, to where we're just kind of partying or hanging out, or they were jumping on the tour bus and things like that. So things have never quite worked out so I can get things signed or hang out with them at any duration of time. So that was essentially my kind of experience with Jim Lee, which was a lack thereof, unfortunately. Excuse me. So that stated, on the 29th, which was the Saturday, yesterday for me. And to those that cruise in on the rewind, I greatly appreciate you. I truly do. Hanging out with me and checking out my stories. So I knew that, as I stated, Charles Soule was going to do a signing event at Revenge of Comics and Pinball in Eagle Rock from the hour of 5 o'clock till ending 6:30. And I wanted to get there so greatly. There was a baseball event happening that I had to go through Dodger Stadium. On my way through there, considerable amount of traffic. All stated, all journeys considered, it was not only worth it, but when I got there, And what I always experience when I do get there is, as I was walking in, there were 4 individuals walking out, 2 sets of 2, both having conversations of how their experiences were while they were walking out, while they're there. Excuse me. And just happy faces, just a warmth, an overall feel of welcomeness as you walk in. And even as individuals are walking out, they're expressing how, their time was there. It's truly a welcoming like community within the community that place offers. And I really, really enjoy going there. So that stated, as I walk in, all I see is smiling faces behind the counter. Those in which that are just looking at books or just hanging out at the tables, they turn with smiles. As soon as you walk through that main corridor area, you walk into another room that is just filled with nothing but pinballs, and everyone is so preoccupied by their game and engulfed in it, and just I don't know, just in their own little world that they don't even notice that you're there. It's so cool. You go into another room, and there's concessions there. There's a couple more pinball machines. The smells of sugar and hot dogs and stuff like that is just awesome. And as I make a beeline essentially for what I know where the signing event is going to be, luckily for me, there was no one there. Fortunately, Jigs, how you do? I'm going to make a mention just for you in a moment. I appreciate you being here because you just jogged my memory. So as I get to all the way to the back, I see Charles there, and I see an employee of Revenge of Comics and Pinball there, almost like a liaison, but also hosting and guesting to the host that's there, if that makes sense, hosting together. And there, it was just very welcoming. And luckily for me, again, I was the only one there, and I got to put down all my stuff that I wanted to get signed. Before I get into that, I do want to make a quick public service announcement since, Jigs, you're here. This coming up, Venom, all new Venom, issue number 5, coming out on, 4/2/2025. There is going to be a 1 per store. A 1 per store is the reveal. I've already seen it. If you already want to know a spoiler, you can go ahead and check it out online to see what that is. But there is a 1 per store that's going to be sold. Polybagged. Few people know about it, but now you do, especially you, Jigs. So thanks for cruising on in. You just reminded me. So back to the story. So I walked up to Charles Soule, and then I asked him, that was one of the first things I asked, is, hey, how do you pronounce your last name? And it, as the person to his right, the employee there, points to her chest and says Soule, he in turn says Charles Soule. So yeah, that was one of the first things I wanted to know. So Jigs, thanks for putting that in my head because I just had to ask. And the other thing was, I was just curious if there was actually any French influence in there, and I figured there'd have been a little marking there, but yeah, no, there wasn't. So let's start off. So I end up laying down all my books. I end up bringing a stack of 22 books that I wanted to get signed. That allowed me, and he was so generous in signing everything, to go ahead and have some conversations. One of the first conversations I wanted to have with him, because I am such a symbiote slut, was how was it for him, an individual that I felt really wasn't certain that he had a whole lot of background history or influence or understanding or background with symbiotes. How was it for him to write a symbiote story, especially one of carnage? He told me that, that was rather different because he had to go ahead and do a deep dive, and he didn't want to just go ahead and write the standard 3-page story of what he felt a carnage story is. He also gave me a little bit more background of saying that he didn't want to do anything that essentially was done like everyone else, but at the same point, he didn't want to insult anybody else's writing. And of course, I am paraphrasing, and either far remove any of his writing from what anyone else has done, in the sense of what everyone's done is not at all what needs to be done to this character. At it same way, he didn't want to also write it in a way that everyone else did, to sit there and to say that all he did is piggyback off of what everyone else was writing. I did also make mention that I really enjoyed how his introduction to the character showed that the symbiotic relationship was considerably different than any of the symbiotic relationship prior in which this existence before, meaning these two really needed one another, and without each other's existence, we're going to die. So it wasn't necessarily a symbiotic relationship of saying, I agree to go ahead and share myself with you, or that I'm a victim to you and that you take over just to go ahead and live off of me, parasitically speaking, as much as they knew that if without one another, they were going to die, and that they're making a deal of, hey, whoever can go ahead and get one over on the next of the other, that's what their overall end game is going to be. This is a relationship considerably different that in which that it has ever transpired before, and that's what I was wondering, if that's what the overall goal was going to be. That is some of what's the goal, what was intended by Charles. Also, that was only a springboard for what he's going to write next. I'm just saying that. Yeah, it is, buddy. So I am so looking forward to seeing what he's going to do. To also move forward / regress, I want to go ahead and talk about 8 Billion Genies. I did make mention to him that I wasn't privy to go ahead and read the whole thing as it was originally released. But I was able to go ahead and get the gist of what was going on. And I did really appreciate what was going on with the book. This was the only thing that I did bring for him the right of the series. And yeah, he was telling me that relationship that he developed with Ryan ended up allowing him to not only maintain that relationship, but to go ahead and further develop other things, which I'll get into in a moment. But also, I wanted to go ahead and tell him that, I've been following him for a while. Now, I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, so I don't have a whole lot of Star Wars books. And the books that I did have essentially were, I guess, just kind of spec stuff. But what I did get, and I am a fan of, is Marvel stuff. And when they go ahead and bring out stories like this, I'm always a fan. So I got this side, First Parents, Ren. And then I also did the second print. I like his signature. It's rather simple. You can see that it's supposed to represent Charles D. and Soule. I just like this cover. It's not a very good, Same thing with this. I just like the cover. As I said, I did pick up, a few Star Wars that I've had in the past because I thought these things might hit. So I not only have one, not only have two, but yes, I have 3 of these things. Excuse me. So I had him sign those and talk about some of the experiences that he had with Star Trek. He was basically down, or Star Wars, and he was down for a Star Wars event. And I think he was touching on some Star Trek stuff. But that was all at WonderCon, and he was just essentially there for a panel, and he was not signing or anything. So he flew in from New York, went to Eagle Rock to go hang out at Revenge for a little while. I assume have a drink, have some snacks, play some pinball, sign a bunch of books, which probably most of which he signed for the night were mine, and then got some sleep, took off next morning, went, did his panel, and then flew out next night, which was about right now. Yeah, I think he was flying out a little after 6:30. So I was so grateful that he go ahead and spent not only time talking about his experiences writing with Star Wars, the years that he's been writing, his evolutionary state that he's been writing, developing, and being able to get to where he's at right now. But also his journeys on writing some of the independence and stuff that he was doing. So back again to 8 Billion Genies, I asked him, hey, how was it to write something as successful as 8 Billion Genies, and then knowing that your expectations were so high that no matter what you wrote, those expectations were going to be there, and especially in something in the vein of that already had the same feel what you wrote in 8 Billion Genies. Well, that is also carried over to The Lucky Devils. How was your approach to that book, knowing that so many critics were going to go ahead and scrutinize no matter what you did, especially when the team essentially was the same? And, it was amazing his reply, because his reply, in my regards, was very similar as the reply I got from Tony Fleeks. He said, I was surprised and quite satisfied knowing that once we go ahead and shown people the previews, the ash can version of the book, and how successful it was, and there was really no revisions done when it was already presented to the shops, that it was very already well accepted, even though, like I explained to him, it didn't receive the same criticism in the sense that it wasn't held in the same regard. And he said, yeah, who knows? To some people, 8 Billion Genies just really, I guess, resonated and caught on to a lot, while in the case of the Lucky Devils, even though people receive it well, they're not talking about it in the same numbers, right? The same numbers of sales are not there. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't hit the same individuals. Much like, especially with me, the Lucky Devils seemed to hit better with me than it did 8 Billion Genies, even though conceptually speaking, I love 8 Billion Genies. I think it's just awesome. Hey, Mark, how's it going? I hope all is well with you. That stated, I was able to only agree with him by stating, yeah, I'm there with you. I get it. I'm really all in on the Lucky Devils. I really liked it. I like also conceptually how it is. And in the same regards, it is drawn, and this was his stating that, in the same, drawn, written, and all kind of delivered with the same feel as 8 Billion Genies, but without any true intent, without copying anything, and knowing that it had to still be a fresh, new story, even though it's kind of presented and given to the audience in the same way. And I stated to him, that's to Charles, that's exactly what Tony was stating to me. He said, yeah, we're kind of a small world. And instantly I was thinking of one of the things that I've been told before in the comic book world, especially of fans and or writers and artists, we're kind of inbred. You know what I mean? We all know one another. We all know each other, how we kind of think after a while. And yeah, some people just kind of, I don't know, have the same mentality towards what they do or how they present themselves or how they present their work. So in the case of what I found with Charles, I think one of the reasons why I got along with him so well is he's very similar as far as Tony is, as far as demeanor, behavior, kind of his humor, a lot of things. And I thought that was rather interesting. All right. So yeah, I ended up getting this signed. I'm a huge Blank fan, so. And then I didn't have issue number 2 on me. I think it's somewhere in the pile. I just couldn't find it in time. As I made mention before, I'm a massive symbiote fan. So what I wanted to get was all my Carnage stuff signed. So I started off with cover A of 1. Look at the cover B, wrap around. You can't see it, but I have them signed on the back of this one and that one. The one, I think it's, wait, is that it? Nah, it's the one in 25. Bam. And a second print. If I can go, it's Mylar, so it's sticking. Actually, that looks pretty cool. This is one of my favorite covers right here. And it's just a cover A, second print. Cover A, issue number 2, and then a 1 in 25. And that is what I got signed. So yeah, that was essentially 22 books that I got signed. I ended up hanging out there for roughly, I don't know, maybe 22 minutes. I got a lot of story. I got a lot of content. I got a lot of information from an individual. It was the first time that I ever got to meet. He was very pleasant, very fun, and very funny. I really got to have a good time hanging out at a place that's so welcoming, such as that it is at Revenge of Comics and Pinball. I look forward to the more events there because it's just such an awesome area. Even at the actual signing event, I looked to my right and there was tables on tables of people playing cards, Magic the Gathering and Pokemon and so forth. It's such a welcoming and awesome place that I love going there, and any and all excuses I can get, I'm gonna go. Now, hey, again, I want to take a moment and appreciate those who wish to decide to cruise in on the live. Thank you, Jigs. Thank you, Mark. And those that cruise in on the rewind, I greatly appreciate you too. And hey, look forward to seeing you guys again. I will have another content, hopefully video, probably tomorrow. So look for that, and that's it for me. Entropy. You guys stay well. Bye.